flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Martha, if you may.
Okay. Notice is hereby given of the annual budget meeting and vote for the Regional School District Number 18 to be held at Regional School District Number 18 Board of Education Conference Room at Center School, 49 Lime Street, Old Lyme, Connecticut, at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, May 5th, 2025, to act upon the following. 1, to adopt a budget of $39,650,803 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, as recommended by the Regional School Board. 2, to conduct such other business as may properly come before the meeting. By vote of the Regional School District Number 18 Board of Education, the vote on item number 1 shall be by voting tabulators in the towns of Lyme and Old Lyme on May 6, 2025, between the hours of 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. pursuant to Section 7-7 of the Connecticut General Statutes. Voting will take place at the following locations in the town of Lyme: at the Town Hall, 480 Hamburg Road, Lyme, Connecticut, and in the town of Old Lyme at the Lyme-Old Lyme Middle School, 53 Lyme Street, Old Lyme, Connecticut.
Thank you. Do I have a nomination for moderator?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Lynn Warren.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Warren?
Okay, the qualifications for voting are as follows. The person must be an elector in Lyme or Old Lyme or a citizen at least 18 years old, plus a property owner on the grand list of October 1st, 2024, with an assessed value of at least $1,000. Voting on the 2025-2026 budget will take place tomorrow during the hours of noon to 8 p.m. in Old Lyme at the Lyme-Old Lyme Middle School and in Lyme at the Lyme Town Hall. I will now open up the meeting for discussion on the budget and questions from the public. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Andy Russell. I'm a member of the Board of Finance in Old Lyme, member of the Region 18 Finance and Facilities Committee, as well as on the current Building Committee. I'm not here in those capacities at all. I've been a resident for 32 years. I encourage you, I'm not looking for you to reduce the budget or increase it. I'm looking for you to take money out of your undesignated fund, that's about $3.1 million. Take $700,000 or more out of it to offset the increase in special ed in this year's budget. You can do that as a Board of Ed. It's educational purposes that money can be used for. You could do that each year for the next 4 or 5 years until the debt service starts dropping off. I'm reminded that you'll probably end up, because the school district is very well run, you'll end up with another $700,000 put back in that budget following this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Randy Nixon. I'm here as just a taxpayer and a resident. I live at 46 McCurdy Road. I've lived here for 43 years. And I'm here to really second the question that Andy has posed to you just now. And I would like to raise it to $800,000 so that it would be commensurate with what the Board of Finance did to try to offset some of the hits that the taxpayers in this town are taking. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and I thank you for your time.
Any other questions? Yes.
David Kelsey, I'm also a citizen and on the Board of Finance, but not here in that capacity. And I would offer 2 comments going forward for the future. First of all, we have a $57 million project that was based upon projections of 1,673 students. I would comment that I would hope the Board of Ed would be much more skeptical, healthily skeptical about the need for the amounts that are required for our schools. Given that right now, we have projections of 1673 by 2031 when the referendum was presented to folks, which I was skeptical of. Right now, we have close to 1,280 students at the same period that are being projected right now. So I would thank the board for the budget that's been presented, given the constraints that it has. But going forward, we have a high school that's going to need to be renovated as well. And I do not think that we need to rely upon projections that are not commensurate with an obvious skepticism that's required. Secondly, we have a minimum budget requirement by the state. We need to revisit that. What are the requirements of the minimum budget requirement? We have a ratio of 10-to-1 for just teachers, let alone paraprofessionals. So I do think that going forward, we need to be very, very careful about what we do, or we're going to end up like Westbrook, that spend an ungodly amount of money on their schools, and they're right now at 60% of what their quote-unquote experts projected them to be. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I am Maria Marchand. I just have a quick comment. You all have a fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers to make sure that you make good and smart choices. Please reconsider your ask. That's all.
Any others? Yes.
My name is Mona Caldwell. My only comment is that our budget has increased $5 million over the last 5 years, and we haven't had an increase in students. So I would also like to ask that we would be more financially responsible when it comes to this budget. I think it's very important for us to think about the children, but also think about us as a community and our affordability. We hear a lot of times people talk about affordability, but when we're getting taxed out of the town, it's not affordable for anybody to continue to live here. It makes it very difficult for families to move in if taxes continue to rise, which they will. They go up by $5 million in 5 years. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I just had a question on the call. On this, but it said voting tabulators in both towns. Did Lyme decide to use your tabulators?
No. The law requires that we ask that they use voting tabulators, but if you recall, there's a second law that allows them to choose to use paper ballots.
Okay, I
which
just
they're
wanted
doing.
to make sure we were clear.
Yep. I figured that was the case when you paused on that one.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Okay, seeing no further questions or comments, I ask for a motion to adjourn to referendum tomorrow from noon to 8 p.m.
So move.
I second.
Any discussion?
I have questions that I want to ask the superintendent to answer that I think will help us understand some of the comments that were made this evening before we adjourn. The first one, since the majority of this year's budget increase is debt service related to the 4-school renovation project, have we reduced the size of, say, the scope of our project relative to our enrollment, Mr. Superintendent?
Yes.
We have.
Yeah, we have.
The addition that was originally planned has shrunk considerably,
Mhm.
and we have also removed other things from scope that we considered unnecessary.
That's correct.
During the last few budget cycles, has the administration and the Board of Education devoted surplus dollars to reduce the overall amount of borrowing on this project?
Yep, the last 2 years.
Has this resulted in a lower budget proposal than we anticipated?
This year.
This year.
We had originally anticipated a 10.53, I believe, % increase it was based on the initial projections of what we were looking at for debt service.
Out of the 3 million in our district's undesignated fund, the board has already committed $1 million to potential costs related to renovating the school's security entrances. Is that correct?
Correct.
So essentially, we'd be talking about the 2 million remaining in the undesignated fund if we were to choose a different action, correct?
So that's not entirely correct, right? Those are earmarked for those projects, but those are not written in stone, correct?
So the board approved up to $1 million towards the security vestibules as part of the project out of the undesignated fund. The
If
other,
it couldn't be
correct.
correct,
Right.
but I believe we don't have the money for that in the 58 million to do.
We
the school
believe at this
security?
point, we could, but the project's, Mile Creek's got another year and a half
Yeah.
to go.
It should be pulled out of that 58 million.
We hope, but we can make no promises. One of the conversations we had at the most recent meeting with our construction and architects had to do with the impact of tariffs potentially on the project. Most of a great number of our materials have already been purchased, but it's possible we may see overruns that we don't anticipate based on future purchases that we can't control.
So-
And even though we have a guaranteed maximum price, sometimes that goes out the window with those types of large increases.
So would it be fair to say, from an accounting standpoint, we've earmarked those dollars out of the undesignated funds? Whether or not we will need to use them, we do not know yet.
We don't know. That's my understanding.
Yes.
Additionally, Mr. Superintendent, it's my understanding that the surplus monies are there for two reasons. One, that it makes certain that as a municipality, Region 18's bond rating stays high. So if we do need to borrow money in future, having that surplus makes it such that we have a favorable bond rating.
That's correct. They do look at our surplus.
And my second understanding of the undesignated fund is that if, say, for instance, we have an act of God and we have a hurricane that does damage to our buildings, we're going to have to repair them in real time before we get insurance reimbursement, and we need monies for that purpose.
That could be a possibility. Yes,
That's-
fortunately hasn't been, but yeah.
Not impossible, but the idea
Yep.
is that we maintain that some money's there for a reason. We don't just spend it all out at any given time. At the end of this fiscal year, it's my understanding, after we do an audit, usually in October, we refund monies to the town. It is my understanding that the board is considering a greater than usual amount of refund to the town if we can manage it based on those numbers, correct?
Yeah, the last few years, we've put away 2% because prior to, what's it been, about 3 years, you could put away 2%. Prior to that, you can only put away 1%. So we did have a conversation this October about not necessarily, come October, we'll see where we are, not necessarily putting away the full 2%, but seeing what was on our list of needs and basing it on that.
Right. And then the last question is, again, it's my understanding that because of the careful management we've tried to show, because of favorable interest rates, the fact that we've tried to reduce our borrowing wherever we can, and the fact that we are getting more in state reimbursement than we anticipated by a substantial amount, millions, I believe. So we are borrowing millions less, and we're going to receive millions more in state funding than was proposed at referendum. Is that correct?
Over the course of paying off the entire project, we anticipate at this point it'll cost us about $17 million less than had been proposed when we went to referendum. So,
And additional millions coming back in reimbursement that we did not anticipate at referendum
yep,
as well
that's part
from
of
the
it.
state.
Yep, grants, better interest rates, less borrowing, you name
Okay.
it.
I just wanted to have that out on the table so that everyone understands that we are thinking about this constantly and that we are doing as well as I think anyone could expect under the present circumstances.
And I think, keep in mind too, we will be bonding again this summer. So they will be looking at what's in our undesignated fund, and that does impact our rating. We've confirmed that with our bonding agent. So that's another consideration when you look at that.
How certain are we of that? I mean, do you have any sense of that's definitely going to happen, or?
Which one?
The
We're gonna
bonding
borrow?
for this
Oh, yeah.
summer. Mhm.
Yep, we have to.
Mhm.
We got to pay for the project, so.
Mhm.
Any other comment? All those, oh, yeah.
Just the one comment on the PK through 8 program, or the building program. So back in January, February, we asked for a list of what's being accomplished versus what's not being accomplished. Do we have that yet?
Well, there's honestly, when we were able to, through what we hope was careful management, add back the portions of the scope that we removed, and we were able to crunch the numbers, we believe we're going to essentially be including all of it at the end of the day. So I didn't
Four
produce.
classrooms, right? It was 4
Okay, so that's
I mean,
I think we went from 10 rooms to 6 in the addition, something like that. But it's
Something like that.
yeah,
12 to
but
8.
but except, I mean, in terms of the addition, all the HVAC work, all the security work on the vestibules, all the ADA and fire code, all of that, we are accomplishing all the scope. So part of the reason I haven't produced said list is I think we are essentially going to be for less than we anticipated, addressing the scope of the project as presented at referendum.
And if I could ask you, as chair of the building committee, am I correct that the large majority of the expense of that project relates to the HVAC work at 4 schools, correct? The addition is
Yeah,
a relatively smaller
the
percent.
addition and the
$9
HVAC,
million.
yes.
Yeah, $9 million for the
Yeah.
addition.
And the HVAC systems. And at the end of the day, particularly since we have solar panels on 4 of our school buildings, our HVAC systems will not only hopefully be very energy efficient and primarily fueled by electricity, but we will also be burning 90% less fossil fuel on our campuses, which hopefully will result in, at the very least, a better environment and some savings.
All right. Any other questions or discussion?
When we talk about public impact and like the requests made, it seems like as we go forward, and you were able to document all of the savings theoretically that are coming back. Unfortunately, there will never be like a handover to the town, but rather lower tax impacts as we go forward with each budget, right? I mean, unfortunately, given say rebates or reimbursements from the state won't come out to be like, oh, look, we've got $10 million. We're going to just write checks to the town. But rather, we will be able to go forward in the budget and say, look, we're being responsible here and we're passing the savings on ultimately. But you don't necessarily see it in, say,
Right.
a one-time impact.
The time you see it is on the impact to towns page, which is in your budget book.
Mhm.
So at the end of the year, any surplus monies that we don't put into our undesignated fund end up being a bill credit to the towns for the following year. So it's actually 2 years in arrears.
Right.
So those monies returned, Susan mentioned, possibly giving a bigger return to the towns. That's how it impacts the towns and provides them some relief based on whatever that amount may be.
And is illustrated there in,
Correct.
in the budget report. Always 2 years in arrears, yeah.
Because the current year,
Yep.
we haven't finished and we don't have it audited.
Right.
Any other comment or questions?
Just to Chris's point, that sprinklers, given their
Yes.
debatable efficiency and efficacy, thank you, debatable whether they'd work or not, and their high cost, we did remove some of the sprinkler work from those. So if you're asking about what was like stated, what was stated
Yeah.
to be going to
Right, thank
happen
you.
and what was not, what is ultimately we're gonna get. We're not gonna get those.
And that was
Debatably
when
necessary.
the last issue of the budget issue of the school quarterly newsletter did indicate that that was the only part of not going
Yep.
forward. Yeah.
And then as far as spending down the undesignated fund towards our special ed expenditures, we might want to hold off on that given that I'm not sure where we are with the conversation in Hartford about the state offering money to the towns specifically earmarked for special ed. I don't know how that would work. If we paid off some, if we were to take that suggestion, would we then get the money if it came from Hartford, or would we be like, I don't know, sort of, it might be better to wait and see on that one. But I mean, whatever people's opinions are about whether that's going to happen, or whether that should happen, that's a conversation that's happening.
Have votes already taken place
For what?
for the budget?
Oh, yes, there's been
Absentee
absentee
balloting.
ballots. Already taken place. All right. Any other questions or comments? Chris, you're working through it. Do you want me to wait for you or are you good?
I just wanted to, I was checking our next meeting to see Holly's presentation and the business report, where we are on percentage to see.
We are exactly the same as last year as a percent to budget.
As a percent to budget.
So special ed's higher, but overall.
Gosh, but facilities is way down. which-
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's like, okay, spitballing.
Yeah,
Trying to
yeah.
remember from a week ago.
It's
I think
pretty
it's like
close. It's pretty
74
close.
point something percent to budget this year, and it was 74 point something percent to budget last year.
And we have May and June left.
Correct.
So we, in theory, if all progresses, we should have plenty of money to give back to the towns after the audit.
The October will be based on last year's, right? No?
No,
No, this coming October's vote to move either 1%, 2%, 0.5%, whatever it is, will be based on,
How we end up this year?
correct.
I got it. Okay.
but
You
then
said
the
it-
credit goes to the following year. That's where the
That's where the
2 years
two
comes
years
in.
Right. Okay.
I'm sure there's an acronym name for that.
No, there actually isn't on that one.
Let's not start it.
Can they start?
All right, any further? All right, so there's a motion to adjourn to referendum tomorrow from 12 PM to 8 PM. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Great.